you already doing. in their capacity to serve Black communities. It is my great pleasure to welcome Albert Phillips and Bobby Marvin Holmes to the proud Black Anthem.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here. It's a blessing to have people to come out and support you, and I don't take that for granted. I do, before we jump in, I do want to invite people to check out the merch and everything in the back. We also got water, snacks, my email list. I would love to add everybody to it so we can keep in contact with you as well. And yeah, we'll get this thing started. So I want to start, before we jump into a video I want to show you, I just want to read from some of the preface of the book to allow you to understand some of the why behind the book and why this is so important to me and why I think our stories and how place shapes our identity is so important to all of us. So I'll read this and then we'll get into the video. In Baltimore, there's one question no native can avoid. Where you from? It's more than small talk, it's a check, a subtle scan of your foundation. If you say you're homegrown, people want to know where your roots are buried. They want to know who raised you, what corners taught you, and what high school molded you. It's a conversation I've never been fully comfortable with because my roots are spread throughout the city. Still, nobody lets you skip it. Sooner or later, you got to stand on something. Sometimes I say I'm from Sandtown-Winchester, not because I was born there, because my name rings bells in that part of town, but because it's the place that raised questions in me about my identity, voice, and worthiness. Sandtown-Winchester is the place that held me when I didn't even know I needed to be held. My father was still learning how to be a dad, reshaping himself after gaining custody of me, and I was a newly motherless boy, still trying to find my balance as a young Black kid in a world that rarely showed empathy for Black fathers and their sons. I lived there for about 4 years, but in those years I learned more about the world and myself than I could have imagined. Sandtown soil had always been mixed that way, holding both struggle and brilliance, and even that soil wasn't new. It was part of the land once walked and worked by the, it was once part of the land, it was once walked and worked by the Piscataway, Susquehannock, and other native peoples who fished through these waters and carved their paths across what we now call Baltimore. Long before I walked those blocks, they had raised Thurgood Marshall, who carried justice from the west side all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Pennsylvania Avenue, just a few steps away, once held the Royal Theater, where Billie Holiday and Cab Calloway turned pain into sound. By the time I arrived, those lights had dimmed. The theater was torn down, and the headlines about Sandtown told a different story of poverty, crime, and decay. Yet, as I traversed those same sidewalks, I was still learning about and experiencing life. My first fight, asking a girl for her number, hearing that a friend didn't make it, and witnessing police brutality. Sandtown-Winchester is where I watched people nod off on my steps like they were fading in and out of life due to drugs. It's the same place where I established lifelong friendships. Then it was gone, or should I say, I was gone from it. My father and his second wife split, and I found myself relocated with my dad to Northeast Baltimore, a different world, a new zip code, a place I've resided for most of my life, but that never fully replaced what I had lost. With this book, I want to tell a different kind of story about Sandtown, not one soaked in nefarious headlines or crime stats, or from the view of a hustler or a shooter. This story is told through the eyes of a young Black boy trying to find his way in a world that didn't always move with him. This book is filled with stories that have lingered in my mind for years. In fact, I spent the last few years reflecting on these stories, wondering how to shape them into something with weight, something readers could sit with and wrestle with. I come to realize these memories aren't just mine, though. They belong to a lot of us, and are the stories of so many Baltimore babies. Most of my life has unfolded in Northeast Baltimore, but West Baltimore, and especially Sandtown, shaped me in ways no zip code can explain. The lessons from those blocks taught me what it means to love your people, even when they're struggling. what it means to survive when the system ain't built for you, what it means to find joy anyway, because that joy keeps you going and making even the bleakest days worth living. These essays are my thank you to teachers who saw me, to grandmothers who kept watch, to homies who held me down, to family who stayed close, and to the boy I used to be, the one who didn't know what was coming but walked forward anyway. Sandtown was a wound and a wellspring, aching and alive with possibility. It shaped me through struggle, grounded me in grit, sustained me through laughter, and gave rise to everything I've come to know, and in many ways it still does. I hope these pages do more than tell my truth. I hope they stir something. I hope they make politicians pause and ponder before they pass another policy that impacts 21217. I hope these pages nudge other writers to pick up their pens and deconstruct their past. I hope these pages push Baltimoreans to remember how much power we've always had and still have. I dare you to look back at the places that made you, to trace the lines between happiness and hardship, to walk back into your past and see the bricks that built you. Sandtown, thank you. Thank you for Barbie, Jerome, Melvin, Khalil, Miss Marlon, Miss Harris, Sierra, John Tay, Lil Reese, Fat Troy, Black Troy, Andre, Rodney, Chris, Rabbit, and so many others. And of course, my father, Albert Phillips Sr., who kept me steady in a place where so many drifted off course. Now, when people ask me where I'm from, I might still pause out of respect for the many places that hold pieces of me, but I always name Sandtown. It is and will always be one of the most important places in my story. These are my truths. These are my tales of Sandtown. All right, let's start the show.
In Baltimore, there's one question no native can avoid. Where you from? It's more than small talk, it's a check. People want to know who raised you, what corner shaped you, what high school molded you. I've never been comfortable with it, but nobody lets you skip it. Sometimes I say Sandtown-Winchester, not because I was born there, but because it held me when I didn't know I needed holding. My father was learning fatherhood. I was a newly motherless boy trying to find balance in a world that rarely showed empathy for black fathers and their sons. I only lived there for 4 years, but they taught me more than I could have imagined. My first fight, my first crush, first friend who didn't make it, first witness of police brutality, people nodding on my front steps. Friendships lasted a lifetime, some lasted shorter, then it all ended. My father and his second wife split, and we moved to Northeast Baltimore, a new code, a different world, a place where I stayed most of my life, but one that never replaced what I lost. And Sandtown carries its own weight of history. It was home to Thurgood Marshall, Billie Holiday, Cab Calloway, proof that brilliance and artistry can rise from the same blocks that bear a deep struggle. That legacy, alongside the everyday people I knew, shaped me in ways no zip code can explain. This book tells a different story of Sandtown, not crime stats or headlines, but through the eyes of a young black boy finding his way. These memories aren't just mine though, they belong to many of us. Sandtown taught me to love my people, even when they struggle, to survive, even when the system wasn't built for us, to find joy anyway. It was both wound and wellspring. So when people ask me where I'm from, I may pause out of respect for all the places that hold me, but I always name Sandtown. These are my truths. These are my tales of Sandtown. Sincerely, Albert L.A. Phillips Jr.
Back home, that's what it feel like. You know what I mean? Sitting on the steps, cooling. So many memories growing up around here, and I feel like being around here really set the foundation for a lot of my life for real, because you see the good, you see the bad, you see the drama, but it's also love though. I think that's the part that people miss. A bunch of my friends used to live around here, so we used to have a good time, man. Of course, my man Malvin, I had Lil, I had Black Troy that used to live next door, Fat Troy used to live up the street. It's a bunch of it. Just like elementary early middle school time. But I just feel like I wrote the book about this area because I think without this upbringing, it wouldn't have set the foundation for a lot of other things in my life. And even just going back, man, I feel like it's like some stuff changed, but some stuff stayed the same. You know what I mean? My brother Rome used to live upstairs. My stepmother Bob used to live in there too. And Rome used to blast the music out the windows, Rough Riders and DMX and all that.
This was like a kind of a restart. But I was staying with my mother when my father got custody of me. And it really made him have to grow up. And so he was kind of growing into a man and a father at the same time I was, growing up as a young boy. So we kind of was both growing up together. But yeah, this is where it started at, man. This was the beginning. And I think through this book, it's going to really paint a picture of a lot of stuff that's under discussed from a childhood perspective. And so we'll be able to show that. And I think, through writing, through literature, people can show off whatever they want to show off and discuss whatever they want to discuss in a way, to me, as I'm writing these stories, I'm resurrecting people, like, because some people might not be alive no more. I might not even talk to them like that no more, but I kind of just put those memories back in place, and I'm able to share them and hopefully inspire other people to tell their story. You know what I mean? Everybody got a story. My story ain't the only story. But I'm hoping that this writing inspires that. So I'm hoping people grab a book and tap in. Right here, man. This the original William Penn Hughes Elementary. I went here for 3rd to 5th grade, and just so many memories. When I left the school, I signed my name over there. If I wanted to, I would climb the gate. I ain't gonna do that right now. I wanted my name still out there, but this school, it was a symbol of learning. It was an educational institution, but it also was a symbol of disinvestment because we didn't even have like full classroom. There was like these boards that separated the class, so it needed a lot of work, honestly. Right across the street, we got the Avenue Market, and I used to come over here with my pops all the time and grab little breakfast sandwiches. You'll see that in some of the essays. Matter of fact, one of them called "A Tale of Two Cafeterias," where I talk about food in the hood and like how we get certain things and other communities get something different. But when I think about the lunch here, we got the Baltimore City School lunch is still the nastiest lunch in America. And I remember going out to the Park School and really seeing like, oh, people eat different things, like kids, they get access to different foods. And just kind of analyzing that as a kid was just crazy. But had a lot of fun memories out here playing football. I was a safety, not a football and safety, but a safety, like we had the badge and we were supposed to quote unquote patrol the halls. But it really just was me wrestling my friends whenever I wanted to and like not being in class. Even at the Upton subway station right across the street where the A-Rapper got killed probably like a month or two ago. There's an essay on that in the book. But one of my biggest memories was being out there meeting this girl at the station, at the subway station, and me and my boy just walking down Fremont from my spot. And when I met up with her, I'm just acting stupid and immature, and I call her a B. And all my boys just kind of paused and was like, well, why you call her that? And I didn't even know why. I think I just was trying to be tough. I killed the whole vibe. But I always remember that looking at Upton subway station. Along with just going in here, getting Pokémon cards, getting breakfast sandwiches. I bought my first bootleg CD, Fat Joe, across the street, Joe's One Still Envy. So this community, man, it just mean a lot to me. Getting Pokémon cards out the Avenue Market. I had a couple friends that live up on Calhoun and Stricker. But just a good time, man. Just growing up as a child, just trying to navigate life, figuring out boyhood. And so I'm gonna always just cherish that memory. And that's definitely gonna always be one of my tales of living in Sandtown.
Oh man, my brother Albert. It's so much fun when we get to talk because there's certain things I was holding back from our conversation offline. I wanted to save for this conversation. As a fellow writer, as a social worker, so much come up for me when I read your book, where you're from, right? Particularly, in social work, we do what we call biopsychosocial. It's an assessment, right? Where we gather information about the individual's life, their stories, different parts, right? And we try to figure out, okay, more about this individual and how best to support them, right? And it's so critical. And this perspective, this theory that we use called person the environment, right? The individual, whether it's their home life or their community, how it shapes them, how it influences their behavior, their thinking, etc. Right? And reading this, that's one of the things that came up for me, but particularly the word identity stood out. And I want to ask you first, can you talk about the relationship of your relationship with Sandtown and how it shaped your identity?
It's an hour answer, but I'm not going to do that.
Yes, sir. We got 45 minutes.
Time schedule. So I think identity was shaped through lived experience. Like a lot of our identities are shaped. And so, as I mentioned in the intro and throughout the book, through relationships with friends, through relationships with family, through various experiences like trial and tribulations, you kind of figure out things. So I think some pivotal experiences that I wrote about in the book, where one of them was courtship, right? Something that a lot of young boys and young girls go through. Another one was, and this is a funny story, I'll tell a little bit of it here, but you'll get the majority of it in the book. But I was literally at home watching the news, and it said Arlington Avenue. I said, it's well now, and I saw a friend named Fat Troy's house being burned down. And I remember just jumping up, running outside, looking a block over, and seeing his house on fire and wondering if he was in there or not. So friendships and connections help to shape identity as well. And, one of the things about being over there is it was during the time when I was in elementary school. So, not just being in the school building, which I talked about a little bit in the video, but even the field trips that we went on. And one of them was to Morgan State University during the summer program. And I remember just being on campus and, you're looking up, all the buildings seem 1,000 feet taller than what they are. And I think in those moments, it kind of planted something in me, like, I want to be on like a campus like this, And then my dad obviously going there, and me going there with classes with him, and then me going there as well. So, as young people growing up, there's so much of our identity is shaped, and I think as an adult now, like going through therapy, you mentioned a social work perspective, being able to go back and dissect your life can help you determine so much of who you are today and why you are that person, both the good and the bad, and I think it's a wonderful experience to be able to dissect yourself and try to fully and holistically understand yourself and how you show up and figuring out the why behind it. That's just something that I personally enjoy, and I think it helps to even push to consider how other people have impacted that, which again gets back to your question about identity.
Absolutely, brother. And one thing, particularly, Sandtown is not alone in this identity and this makeup, right? You have communities across Baltimore, you have communities across the United States that are very similar to Sandtown. And oftentimes, folks from the outside and folks from the inside as well look at it as an eyesore, a trap, a place where no one wants to go, right? But they miss the beauty. They miss the beauty in the struggle. They miss the complexities of communities like Sandtown. And I believe stories like this, books like this, reveal that to the world. Can you please talk about what are the strengths that you gained from Sandtown in your Baltimore journey?
I said a little bit of this in the intro too, but being able to still find love in people who are struggling, right? And understanding that they're not other. They're not like this other thing. Like, we all are part of this. You know, we all trying to navigate this life. And, you know, I had friends who had all sorts of situations going on in school. Some not having parents around, some family members on drugs. I had a friend who got shot when I was in elementary school. I think she got shot in her arm. She survived, but just like so much going on, and still being able to find a love there. Yeah, because some of those things, like, you know, nobody wants to live that way. Nobody wants to experience that. But it's a reality. It's still a reality, unfortunately, that has to be changed. But still being able to pause and sit back and reflect and find a love there. And I don't think in that moment of being a child, I was so intuitive to consider all of that, but it was happening in real time. And as an adult, being able to go back and reflect on that and say that, oh yeah, it was crazy. It was a lot of stuff going on, but you also had a lot of people that cared for you, that created opportunities for you, that created programming. Even in that school that I said was disinvested, it was so many programs for young people. One that I even forgot about, I was just telling you about this earlier, but I was a part of a youth literary journal at the school. And now full time, I help schools create their own literary magazines, you know, at my job. So it's just crazy how these things come around full circle. But I think it's also, you know, it's like community that people see, and this is in neighborhoods all across the city. It's community that people see from the outside, and then it's the community perspective that you see living on the block, right? So on the outside, if you look at the headlines, the news captions, you see a whole lot of stuff. And some of it is true, some of it is exaggerated. But then when you are there on the block in the community, it gives you a different perspective. It's kind of like watching a performance from a balcony and being on the stage, right? Both of them are important vantage points, but I wanted to write from the perspective as the person that was on the stage. I wanted to give you that, you know, 360 world view of what was going on from my perspective. There's a lot of other stuff going on that people can share from their perspectives, but I wanted to give my readers something pivotal that was going on with me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another part that, you know, reading your book, Albert, afterwards, you know what I said to myself? I was like, this is like that show, The Wonder Years. That was a Baltimore edition, right? You had that sense of, you felt your innocence as a child, right? Just being curious about the world around him and navigating that world, right? And one thing that, you know, from spilling juice on the marble stairs, being into Pokémon, West Baltimore boy into Pokémon, loving video games, what I found, brother, was black boy joy in the midst of all that. And something that oftentimes is not celebrated enough and pointed out enough. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's core. You know, I think if you know, Black Boy Joy happens every day, right? Every day, all over the city, and I think that becomes the foundation to help keep people going. You know, Black Boy Joy, Black Girl Joy, because you know some of these children are coming from struggling households. You know, and all of these things going on. A whole federal shutdown, we still in the midst of. So people are dealing with very real things. But even when I look at, I mean, I'm thinking specifically about young people here, but I see pictures and videos of young people in Sudan and all the craziness that's going on over there, or over in Palestine, what's going on there. You still will find happy children. You still will find children trying to just be who they naturally are. And I think when it comes to this community, because I just lived a few blocks down the street, I was trying to do the same thing in my own way. And so I think that's important I'm glad that you noted that, because it's important that I think young people continue to have joyful moments, that are safe, and that allow them to be who they are, in whatever way that they do that. And one of the ways that I did that was through writing. So I mentioned the literary journal that I worked on, but also teachers just kind of pushing me to free write. I remember going on poetry.com and writing poems on there, and finishing my work early. They're just like, all right, instead of you playing and acting up, write something, show me something. And I'm thankful for that, because I think those moments over time helped to create this book and many other things that I have done and will do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Going to that, one thing that was also, significant, and I would say it's normal, but not talked about enough. Your father, the presence of your father, throughout the book, literally on the cover. I know your father. Being a man of the people, fellow social worker as well. What did it mean for you to have him front and center in that story and critical part of your life? That part over West, as I ain't gonna tell too much book, you gotta go support my brother and get a book, get a copy yourself. But when you said he told you to go outside and clean those marble stairs, which is a tradition in Baltimore, those marble stairs going out, make sure they are pristine, they are crisp. They have competitions in Baltimore about where the cleanest marble stairs, but your father making you go out to clean the stairs, that level of, and I'm always talking about what a man brings to the household, he brings to the family, and why the presence is so important. Provide that energy to complement feminine energy that's in the household. But what did that mean for you to have your father during that time and to have him as an intricate part throughout your story?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, my father right here in the second row, and I'm very thankful for him. So, to answer your question, I think this cover kind of sums it up. Being that person that I could always lean on, that shoulder that was always supportive to me in every part of my life. And somebody that I always admired, somebody who I always looked up to, even when, he was living a different life. Always somebody who I wanted to be around. And you naturally see that in the book, because it's hard to write about self and identity and those experiences without the interactions with the people around you. So he literally raised me. So you won't see him showing up. But I think his impact has been monumental in my life. We can take it all the way back to elementary school, as I mentioned earlier, of him going to Morgan State. That was an inspiration for me to want to go to Morgan State. I had another brother who graduated from Morgan State, another brother who attended Morgan State. So it became a family tradition that he helped to start. Also going through rites of passage. He went through, but then myself and my brothers went through as well. Because he saw that as something foundational for all of us going from boyhood to manhood, and learning more about our identity, not just as black boys in Baltimore, black men in Baltimore, but understanding that we are people of a larger African diaspora. And so being able to have that power and to tap into that is a result of him making me be a part of programs and organizations, because you don't, as a child, always see the value in everything that your parents give you. But sometimes you gotta force kids to do stuff they don't want to do. But no kid wants to hear that. You know what I mean? And it can be tough in the moment. And I think in different moments it was tough for me, but him making me be a part of Soul Robbers Nation, which was a local Pan-African and Black national organization, him making me be a part of community events and outreach things. And eventually over time, I started to see the value in it. And so I started to realize like, oh, this is growing me as a person, but also supporting my community, right? And I've always been a person that loved to give back. I think him, my grandmother, even my brother Cam, always about giving back to people in different ways, being very compassionate people. So I think having that foundation has made me the man I am today. I'm very thankful for that. And I thank you, Dad. I appreciate you.
Give it up, yo. Black Stone, Black Stone. Give it up. It cannot be ignored. This story, this book, the time it's being released, and then the place where we literally are sitting right now, right? This is the 10th anniversary of the Baltimore, 2015 Baltimore uprising. This was an epicenter where a lot happened right here. And your story is just one of the many stories that this community is comprised of. You touched on it throughout this book. That, folks, we know things just don't happen. Sandtown didn't just become Sandtown, right? And I tell folks that black folks are not like the Thriller video, when there's zombies come out of nowhere and just decay and destruction. This was intentional in terms of the communities, the state of communities and conditions. And you talked about, particularly with your piece on former Mayor Martin O'Malley, former Mayor and Governor Martin O'Malley. But I would like, if you could dig into that some more, talk about the complexities of systemic racism, structural racism, that shaped not just Sandtown, but so many communities across Baltimore and across the U.S.
I had a professor at Baltimore City Community College who used to always ask us, this was in a history class, I can't remember the exact title of the class, but she used to always ask us, how long have black people been free? And so she would ask us that because she wanted us to consider all of the things that we have faced and we still continue to face today. And so she would always ask us that question, and it's something that I still grapple with, right? Like, what's our definition of freedom? Aside Shakur, rest her soul, she talked about freedom. And I think we have to consider all of, we always talk about chattel slavery, but we have to consider all of the things that we've gone through and all the things that we can continue to go through that has put us in the place that we're in today. Right? If we think about Baltimore, we know that banks intentionally didn't give people loans to get houses, right? We know that redlining, this was an epicenter of that here. We know that Penn North looks damn near the same way it looked before the uprising. Like, how much has changed, And in fact, I was reading an article a few weeks back about, they were interviewing people from the neighborhood, and the summary of it essentially was like, people came and then they left. People got excited. Some programs started, some of them still exist, but it's not nearly enough to take a community from survival to thriving. And so I think that specifically black people have done two things in this country at all times. One of them has been to push the country to uphold to its morals and standards, whether it's in the Constitution or other documents. And it has also resisted and fought back and found our ways to do for self, because we know that the government alone is not going to sustain us. I mean, we see that right now, literally right now. People are pooling together resources. People are on the phone. People are on social media. Y'all SNAP ran off, go here, right? You need food, go here. You need clothes. It's getting cold outside. Go here. And I think we've always had to do that. And I think that's a natural part of who we are. As being communal, but also being resistors of oppression. So we've gone through a lot, and we still going through a lot. But I think if people continue to work together, we continue to fight back.
Absolutely, bro. Before we close out, if you can, Albert, you did an assessment. Can you give a grade on how government, non-government entities, community is doing in terms of supporting the life outcomes of Black boys like yourself? You're not unique in a regard that there are amazing and brilliant brothers there throughout Sandtown-Winchester. You had different course in a lot of ways and different support in your journey for you to be who you are today. So your father was very intentional. But you're not unique in terms of being a Black boy with so much capacity, so much potential. But are we doing enough as a city, as a community, for more Black boys coming from Sandtown-Winchester and elsewhere to have magnificent, great, outstanding Black outcomes?
No, it's an F for me.
Harsh.
Yeah, it's so much that still has to be done, and I would say a F collectively. If you think specifically about government intervention, though I am thankful for our mayor. I'm thankful for because he's been very intentional about investing a lot of money and resources into young people. In fact, we think about the rec centers, we think about programming for young people in the city, citywide activities, because there's an understanding that if there is no alternative, we know what young people are going to do, right? And so I'm thankful for him and his administration for the work that they're doing, but I don't want to feel like exceptional. I don't want to feel unique. I want to feel like all Black boys in the city can thrive. And I don't feel that way now. And I think that our communities reflect that. That's not the reality. So we still have a lot of work to do. And this is not just a government issue, because like I said earlier, if we simply depended on that, then we would never be successful. But it's a community thing, it's a community challenge, it's a local challenge, but it's also a national challenge as well. Some of the factors that we're facing here, the same realities exist in other major Black cities throughout the country. And so that's my grade, but I'm also now, and probably for the duration of my life, willing to be a part of that change, willing to be a part of that work, because it's so much to do. And I'm hoping to inspire some other young people to, share their stories and share their realities and uplift their communities as well.
Yes, sir. Which brings me to our final question before we close out. You expressed, and go back and look at your table, your display in the back. You expressed a love for reading and writing at a very young age. I did myself, where you took joy in it, and I'm not sure if you were conscious of it, but you knew it was a way, particularly with the O'Malley letter, you knew it was a way for your voice to be heard. What can parents do? What can community leaders, teachers, etc. do to cultivate the voices of Black youth through writing?
I think there's several things that can be done. I think households have to create a culture of reading. there's a book out about nearly anything. And if there's not one out, like I think Toni Morrison said, we need to write it. So creating a culture of reading, I think, can be so impactful in our households because it's not just the words that are on the page, right? It's about the imagination that we cultivate. It's about the fluency skills that we build. It's about the comprehension that we have access to. It's about comparing and contrasting our realities through the page that we read. And so it's much more than just the words, but the words are a conduit for other things. And so that's something that I think that, we all can do. I think also pushing young people to tell their stories. There's so much that you'll learn about them that you won't learn just through conversation, but through their art, whether it's writing, whether it's drawing, whether it's music, etc. It'll give you a deeper and sometimes more intimate look into their reality and how they perceive the world. So I think that's something that we have to push on people to do, even if it's not like, become an artist as a profession, but use art as a gateway into showing who you are to the world, right? I think we also have to continue to be involved in the school system because that's where our young people spend, 7 to 8 hours a day. And we should know what our students are learning, what they're engaging in, what's missing, because the same way that the school boards in Florida have pushed a lot of stuff out of the schools because they felt like they didn't want that stuff there, we can do the same thing by pushing things into school because we feel like it's not enough of it there, right?
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of power in that to be able to determine what curriculum people use, what lessons they're learning, what realities they are gleaning from, and we got to make sure we exercise that. So I think those are 3 things we can do today.
Absolutely. My brother, Albert Phillips Jr., aka LA, author, advocate, entrepreneur, a great human being. Y'all give it up for my brother, Albert Phillips. Thank you for your story, brother.
Thank you.
So we have about 15 minutes for your questions. If you have a question, raise your hand, I'll call on you. We also have some questions from our online audience. So anyone have a question to start us off? If not, I'll go to the online audience to break through. Nice. Albert, can you talk about how you chose which stories to include? Is there something you left out that, looking back, you wish you had?
I've been waiting for somebody to ask me that question. So I'll answer the latter part first. There are a couple of stories, one in particular, that I literally the essay wasn't at a place where I felt like it was publishable. And so it was a very conscious decision to not include it. But I'm still working on it. I'm still going to write it. But it's an essay called Bubblegum and Rocks. It's because that was a nickname for the elementary school that we went to. And I'm like, I think the style of it, I was trying to figure out. I think I'm going to do like vignettes instead of just like a full essay on it. Just capture different memories. But yeah, it wasn't ready. It wasn't, fully baked, as they say. So I didn't want to rush and just throw it in there and not be proud of it. And even some of these essays that are in here, they've gone through a lot of workshopping and rehashing and reshaping. And some of the students who are in my MFA program have seen some of the early versions of these essays. Some of them they haven't. My editor has worked with me thoroughly to get it right. So yeah, it's always a little bit of gymnastics in deciding what to put in and what to keep out.
Another question from the online audience. What do most Baltimoreans not know about Sandtown?
I wouldn't even make this exclusive just to Sandtown, but I've learned over the last few years of how much Native American heritage is in the city. We know Baltimore is like this super black place. I'm like, man, there's even a history that predates that. So I found joy in learning about some of that and considering what happened on these streets and blocks and corners that we walk on that I had no clue of. Again, we talked about school like that. Like, ain't nobody gonna teach you that in school. I'm like, why not? Like, that's too significant to exclude. So, yeah, that's kind of broadly about the city, but I would say, at least from growing up, man, Sandtown used to have some of the best chicken boxes in the world. I don't even eat chicken no more, and I still, think back to going to the Avenue Market and other places. I would also say that there are some of the most creative young people on the planet that live in Sandtown. Growing up, I had friends that were amazing visual artists. I had friends that were great storytellers, or story, kind of like in a auditory way, like a griot, like that could just tell a really good story, And I don't think that's unique again just to Sandtown, but those are some of the things that I remember. And just like a lot of other parts of the city, there are a lot of elders who really, really care about young people in that community. So I'm thankful for them.
Any questions from our audience here before I go to another online question? Sir?
Yes. So, first of all, again, congratulations on the book. Right?
Thank you, man. Thank you for coming out.
Absolutely. So I heard you mention about during 2015, when the uprising, how a lot of people came and left. You had a whole art display and everything that was there, and then it left. But it was an inspiration actually for the Black Arts District. So how can art heal this area? How can art heal? That's my question. In a practical way.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the uprising real quick. Because I remember, a lot of us remember it, right? In different ways, in different realities. And I remember being at work. I was working at Big Brothers Big Sisters at the time, and I was at Hamden, and everybody was like, "Do not go to North Avenue. There's so much going on. Things on fire." And I was like, "Cool, I'm about to go there now." And so I remember coming right down there and just being an observer first, because it was like a movie, like for real. I've never seen police cars on fire. The system had no clue what to do for quite a period of time. And I remember I was standing right over at everyone's place, bookstore right down the street, and nobody was going to break in and steal my books. It just wasn't. It wasn't at the top priority. Yeah, I just remember standing there and just communing with other brothers there and having conversation and saying that, man, this was a tipping point. And these tipping points happen in history. And they're not always planned and calculated and predictable, but there becomes a point, I think Dr. King talked about it, where, the thing goes off the rails. And it's a wake-up call. I think it's a wake-up call to a lot of people, but you asked specifically about art, and you mentioned the Black Arts District, which one helped to sponsor this event, so shout out to the Black Arts District. Yeah, clap it up for him. And also Lady Breon, who's a good friend of mine, who's been doing, man, I just sent her a voice note the other day, yeah, poor Lori of the state of Maryland. And I sent her a voice note the other day. I said, I remember sitting in your living room and we just were watching Brave New Voices, which these young poets from different parts of the country doing slam poetry and just vibing. And now that's like you. You've ascended to that. You're the same person, but you've been cultivated, so it's just wonderful. But art, man, art can do so much. This book was like a therapy session for me. I'm in therapy, and I've been in therapy for years, but I had to really sit down and think about, why did I feel this way at this moment? I had to even talk to some of the people who I wrote about to kind of compare and contrast my reality, because people, in memoir, people have different memories, so we can all write about this book event today, and we can all have 50 different ways that we wrote about it. And yeah, so art, I think one of the forms of art that I love the most is hip hop, because it tells whatever story that people want to paint, but it tells a story of, people underserved, in poverty, struggling to make it out. That's kind of, you think about the origin of it, this is our outlet, this is our voice. And I think art can give people agency, it can give people authority, and it can allow them to express themselves in a way that they want to be expressed. So I think it just has natural, like, powerful qualities in those things.
Question from the online audience. Can you provide advice to a prospective memoir writer on how you captured your childhood with such detail? Did you consult a journal, photos, family, friends, interviews?
I probably have done all of that. Memoir is very intimate. Because you're putting a mirror on yourself. And in a way, kind of gleaning your eyes out into the world, but always coming back to self. Like, I don't know, if you walk down the street, how does that impact self? If you have an argument, how does that impact self? So you have to consider all those things. And I think also in memoir, I'm fortunate, and I think all writers should consider having a community of writers. So I'm a part of University of Baltimore's MFA programs, but you can go to a library, you can go to different bookstores have a writing. I even talked at a senior center a few months ago up in near Park Heights, and they had their own writing club. So I always tell writers to find a community because they're going to help you develop as a writer far beyond what you can do on your own. I think sometimes there's this feeling of, I'm going to write the next book that's going to sell 1 million copies, so I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be in my bubble, and I don't want anybody to steal my thoughts and my ideas. And it's not, that's 99.9% of the time, that's not the reality. People want to help you grow, they want to help you ascend, and they can help you consider things. But I would also just say, as a memoir writer, and it's funny, I was just talking about this with some students at work, but to consider all the senses as you're writing, as you consider an experience, not just what you think, but what do you see? How do you help the reader see what you're seeing? How do you help them feel what you're feeling? Understand the emotions that you're going through. You really want to be about the work of helping a reader become you in a way, right? Or at least walk through your shoes to see your reality. And that's how you're gonna write the most crisp story, regardless of what genre it is. It can be fiction too. But you want to be able to put somebody deeply in those shoes. And I think, again, building that can come through having a writing community, reading other books as well, and considering how other people do it.
Time for one more question. Anyone here in the room? All right, Albert, you just talked about writing and reading, and there's a question about the writers who have impacted your own writing. Can you talk about some of them?
So many. Some are local. D. Watkins, Bonnie Fidel. One of my all-time favorites is James Baldwin. Frederick Douglass was an amazing writer. He write about his story. Oh man, so many people. Even honestly, I don't know if I would say all these people are my quote-unquote favorite writers. But there are so many great writers who are at UB. Those folks have really inspired me a lot. Even with this book, one of my goals in being in this grad program is to put out a book while in the program. Our thesis is another book, so in the midst of working on this, I'm working on a whole other book right now. Some of those people are Maya Angelou, R.G. Lord. There's one person that I'm forgetting. Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart is my favorite book of all time. So I would just go with some of those people.
I want to take this moment to thank today's moderator, Bobby Marvin Holmes, and our author, Albert Phillips. So again, for those who got here a little late, Albert brought snacks and drinks and a merch table with his old book and his new book, and he'd be happy to talk and sign it. Thanks again for coming out.
Yeah, man. Congrats, brother.
see you.
Yeah, man. See you, man.
2 times a week.
Yes, sir. 2 times a week. Definitely blessed. What's up, bro? How are you, man? I definitely had a great time. That was awesome. Like, yeah, great outline, great questions. It's good.
So glad. Oh,
Just check.
Okay.